Welcome to our channel. This is the first tutorial of the series for new developers who wants to build web applications, targeting the Microsoft development stack, especially using ASP.NET Core Razor pages. Today, I'm going to show a step-by-step guide for creating ASP.NET Core 2.2 C# Razor Pages web application, using Visual Studio 2017. First of all, if you are learning web programming, or are an experienced Java developer, or PHP web developer, wanting to learn ASP.NET Core, this is the right tutorial for you. ASP.NET Core uses C# programming, HTML, CSS and JavaScript web technologies. It would be an advantage if you already have basic knowledge of the Microsoft.NET framework with C# programming, and a basic understanding of web technologies such as HTML, CSS and JavaScript. If you don't have all of them, don't worry, you will learn them as you progress. Secondly, we need Visual Studio 2017 installed on the development computer. The Visual Studio Community Edition is completely free and it is fully functional, and have many more great features than any other commercial or free development IDE. If you do not have it installed, download the installer from the link provided below in the description. Also, you can follow this tutorial if you have already installed any commercial edition of Visual Studio such as Professional or Enterprise. Microsoft SQL Server Express Local DB is also required. Local DB is a feature of SQL Server Express targeted to developers. It enables an application to use the database without complex configuration tasks. Local DB usually comes with the Visual Studio installer. If you are installing Visual Studio, remember to select the option during the installation. Or, you may have already installed Visual Studio without selecting the SQL Server Express Local DB, then you can add it by running the installer again and selecting the option. See the links in the description. Okay. Those are the main components required for this tutorial. To help create more videos like this, please subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. In step 1, we will learn how to create a new Razor Pages web application project from Visual Studio 2017. Open Visual Studio 2017. The Startup tab will be shown in the IDE window. Click on the Create New Project link. As you can see, it opened up a new project window. Visual Studio provides several pre-built project templates. As we can see here in this window, those templates are categorized, so that developers can easily choose the one that they want to start with. You can select a template by going through the Categories pane at the left. Or if you know the template name, simply typing part of the template name on the search box at the top. Here, first, select the web subcategory under the Visual C# category from the left pane. Then select the ASP.NET Core Web Application project. Then give a name for the project. I have named it Razor Web App 1. And next, select a folder location to save the project. Normally when you type the project name, Visual Studio will automatically fill the solution name field with the same name. One solution can have more than one project, so it is always good to give a meaningful name for the solution name. Here I named it ASP.NET Core Tutorial 2017. In that way, I can add additional projects for future tutorials. Also, notice that two more options, Create Directory for Solution and Create New Git Repository, are already selected as default. Leave them as selected. Git is the default source control system available now in Visual Studio. If you need to know more about the Git repository, search Git and Git for Windows in your web browser. Next, click the OK button. It opens the new ASP.NET Core web application window. Note that in this window, .NET Core and ASP.NET Core 2.2 options are selected by default. The latest ASP.NET Core version installed on my computer is 2.2. The available templates in the middle pane depend on the selected ASP.NET Core version. Now for this tutorial, leave the .NET Core and ASP.NET Core 2.2 options selected, and then select the web application template from the middle pane. Then click on the Change Authentication button. It will pop up another sub-window. Then select the Individual User Accounts Radio button option. Next, click the OK button to close that pop-up window, and again click OK. Visual Studio now creates a complete web application based on the template we selected. After adding the project files, it fetches the supporting files in the background. Here we can see it's still restoring those required files. And also, if we look at it here, there is a little exclamation mark with the yellow background, indicating the project is still not ready and needs some fixes. This is because it is still downloading the dependent files. Once it is finished downloading, it will compile the project. If there are no issues, those yellow exclamation marks will go away. If it does not go away for a long time, we can force the IDE to recompile the project by right-clicking on the project name and then selecting the rebuild command. For this project, I will skip the rebuild process. Now, see how it has finished downloading. And it shows Ready label. And look here, the yellow exclamations are gone. That means the project is now ready to run the web application. Finally, this is what it looks like, shown in the IDE. Before running the app, let's get familiar with the important sections of the IDE and find out how it works, and how it helps us develop applications. The top pane contains the menu and the toolbar. It is self-explanatory. Out of all these commands, we mostly use build and debug menu items. From the toolbar, we use this green triangular button, just like the play button on an audio or video device. Here we call it the debug button. This is the one we use to run the application in debug mode. The same can be done by pressing the F5 button from the keyboard. Sometimes we just need to run the app without debugging. For that we can select the debug menu item, then select the start without debugging item from the drop-down menu, or Ctrl F5 from the keyboard. The right top pane shows the files that are required for the application called Solution Explorer. It is similar to Windows Explorer, but it is more like a logical folder structure than a physical representation of files. We will go through this in more detail later. On the left side, this small strip shows the SQL Server Object Explorer. When you click on it, it expands towards the right. This section is useful when we are working with the database. Once we've finished using it, click on the side again to narrow it down. In the middle, this large area is the main editor area. This is where the coding is done. All open files are stacked here as tabs. This tab shows the information page created by the template wizard and is not required for the actual application. For example, if we click on the program.cs file, it opens the file into this area. If we double-click on the file, this is what happens. It will keep open as a tab and stay open until we close it. Like this, we can keep the files that we are working on. Also, we can pin the file so that it stays on the right or unpin it when no longer needed. Remember, not to keep too many files open, it will affect the performance. The bottom left side pane shows messages and status. By default, there are 3 tabs available at the bottom left side pane. Here we can see the Output tab, Error List tab, and Package Manager console. As the name suggests, Output window shows the status messages for various features. Error List tab shows errors, if there are errors in the project files. Let's take a look at the error list. If I change the code here, it shows errors. Package Manager console lets you use NuGet PowerShell commands to find, install, uninstall, and update NuGet packages. NuGet is the package manager for .NET. A NuGet package is a single zip file that contains compiled code and other files related to that code. The bottom right pane shows the properties of the selected item in the Solution Explorer. Apart from those major sections, the bottom status bar also shows very useful status messages. For example, here it shows the line number and column number of the cursor position. This area shows the Git source control related information. This concludes the basic understanding of the IDE and some of its features. In the next section, we will learn how to use the application. Now the project is ready to run, there are no errors. Debug mode is the default selection in the Visual Studio 2017 IDE. Make sure that debug and the any CPU drop-down options are selected at the top toolbar. Press Ctrl plus F5 to run the program without debugging. This is what the website finally looks like. It has a menu bar, login and register links, some information on the page, and a footer as well. This is the basic site created using the template that we selected during the project creation. You can add, remove, or modify any of this content by editing the project. Let's go back to the project. This is the foundation for a professional website. As I mentioned before, we will examine the Solution Explorer in a bit more detail. The topmost entry shows the solution name. A solution can have multiple projects. In this tutorial we have one project, that's the Razor web application. When we expand each top-level item, we can see all the related items associated with the project. Before expanding, let's take a look at top-level items inside the project node. At the bottom there are three files with extensions: appsettings.json, program.cs, and startup.cs. Just above those files, there are three familiar-looking folders, namely areas, data, and pages. Also, there are three more expandable items, just like folders, but with different icons. And the topmost item named Connected Services is not expandable. Okay. Now we will have a quick look at each item, based on the importance of getting started with the modifications. The file program.cs is the entry point when executing the application. And then the startup.cs. And the appsettings.json contains the configurable setting for the application. ASP.NET Core uses the Pages folder to store all the pages or views related Razor syntax files and supporting files. Each Razor page consists of two files in the format filename.cshtml and filename.cshtml.cs. A file with .cshtml extension contains HTML markup with C# code using Razor syntax. A file with .cshtml.cs extension contains C# code that handles page events or controller actions. Note that this extra .cs file extension. Also, there are some other files that use the Razor syntax, such as partial files and layout files with .cshtml extension, but it has no paired .cs file. For this tutorial, we only modify few files: the index.cshtml, appsettings.json, and _layout.cshtml. Also, we will add a new page, and we may need to add or download some UI-related files as well. Next, we will look at the www root folder. This is actually a physical folder. In Visual Studio, it depicts a different icon instead of the usual folder icon. The icon looks like a globe or earth, to represent the web. ASP.NET Core treats this folder as the root of your website. Any static files such as JavaScript, CSS, images, that are required for the website, should be stored inside this folder and the subfolders under it. Web server only serves those files that are in the www root folder over an HTTP request. Any static files, not stored under this folder, are blocked and cannot be served by the server by default. Visual Studio template already added separate folders for the different types of static files. We can add, modify or delete any static file that is required for the website, under the www root folder and as you wish. On the other hand, remember, do not put any dynamic files such as Razor pages or C# code files under www root folder. I am going to add a folder for images. Right-click on the www root folder, and select Add, New Folder. And named it as Images. We can drag any image from Windows Explorer to this folder. This CSS folder is used to store cascading style sheet files. Under it, The site.css is the default CSS file added by the template wizard. We will modify this file later. Or we can add our own CSS file here. Similarly, the JS folder is for JavaScript files. And inside the folder, this file site.js can be used for any JavaScript required for our website. favicon.ico is the website icon, which will show on the Browsers tab when the website is loaded. You can simply replace this file with your own logo, which should be in the .ico file format. The lib folder keeps any client-side libraries needed. By default, Visual Studio uses Bootstrap as UI framework and jQuery for JavaScript framework in ASP.NET or ASP.NET Core projects. If we want to add a new client-side library, you can do it by right-clicking on the lib folder under www root folder, and then selecting Add, then the client-side library. It shows a new Add Client-Side Library pop-up window. For example, we will add the Font Awesome icon library. Just type it on the library text box. I'll type Font Awesome, and then type @ symbol. It will show the available version numbers. I am going to use version 4.1.0. We can either select Include All Library Files or choose Specific Files. I am going to use the default here. In the target location text box, it already shows the right folder where we want the library files to be copied. Remember, by default static files are only served from the www root folder. Now click the Install button. Now it is downloading selected files into the selected folder. Note this, now Visual Studio also added another file called libman.json into the project, here, not under the www root folder, instead of as a top-level file. It is called the Library Manager Manifest file. This file is only added once. It is just one entry for the Font Awesome client-side library. If we add any new library later, it will add a new entry to this file. We can also directly edit the manifest file to install or uninstall client-side packages, instead of using the graphical user interface provided by libman. Even you can update any installed library by just editing the version number in the libman.json file. Let's save the project. These are the files downloaded for the Font Awesome library. The Areas folder is added by the template wizard here. That's because we selected the individual user accounts option for authentication during the project creation process. If we have selected default no authentication, then the wizard will not add the Areas folder. In the ASP.NET Core web app, Areas provide a way to partition the app into smaller groups based on functionality, each with its own set of Razor pages. In this project, the Identity folder is added to group user account functionality. Microsoft provides the Identity framework as a Razor Pages library in ASP.NET Core. So we do not need to create our own user authentication mechanism. We can use and customize user authentication and authorization. Areas with Razor Pages require a Pages folder inside the Area Name folder, in this case under the Identity folder. Other examples of use cases for areas are administration, blogs, products, sales, and so on. The Data folder is also added by the template same as the Areas folder. This folder is generally used to keep the class files related to Microsoft Entity Framework. Identity Framework uses the Entity Framework to handle the database to manage user authentication data. Okay. So far we have added a new Font Awesome client library and a file, libman.json, to the project. Now it is time to modify the code. Let's go back to the website. Here at the top menu, it has the website name or company name, then the home page link, privacy link, and on the right-hand side it is user account related links, register and login links. Currently what we are seeing here is the home page. If we click the privacy link, it shows the privacy page. If we click the home button again, it shows the home page. Similarly, when we click the account buttons, we see different content for the page. Every page keeps the same menu bar and footer. We will add another page called About to the project, and a link for that page next to the privacy link. Back in the project. Right-click on the Pages folder inside the Solution Explorer, then select Add. Then Razor Page. It opens up a window called Add Scaffold. Select Razor Page, then click the Add button. Then it shows another window named Add Razor Page. Here we give the page name we want, type About in the Razor Page name text box. Under the options, we keep the defaults. Generate Page Model class. And use a Layout page ticked. Then click the Add button. It will take a while to generate the About Razor Page and associated page model class. Now the files are ready, and automatically loaded the C# model class file about.cshtml.cs. If we click on the about.cshtml, it shows Razor Page content. We should be able to visit this page by clicking a link on the menu bar. How do we do this? The _layout.chtml file contains the site layout for this project. It is almost like an HTML file with some ASP.NET Core elements. Here is the opening HTML tag. And, next here, the head tag. Then the body tag. Inside the body tag, here, is the code for the menu bar. Now I'm going to add the About link. Closely look at the code written for the privacy link. Just copy the whole list element and paste it next to the closing list element. And then just modify the newly added line, replace the word privacy with About. This code for the menu item list hasn't got the user account links that were shown in the menu bar. Instead, it is in a separate partial Razor Page called _login partial. This line calls that partial page. This @renderBody function generates relevant page content on the website. If the user clicks the home page link, the server will render the contents in index.cshtml, here inside this main element. Now we can check the website. Save the project. Since we only edited this Razor layout page, we can refresh the web page to see the changes. If we get an error, it is necessary to rebuild the project. Or just press Ctrl plus F5, it will rebuild and open the website on a new page. Here we can see the changes we made. Now click the About page. It shows the content for the About page. Now we have a better understanding of how to get started with the Razor Page web application. Currently only the word, About, is shown on the page. Next, we are going to add some static and dynamic content to this About page. To show dynamic contents, we need to use C# code in the page model file. The page model class for the about.cshtml is in the associated about.cshtml.cs file. On this page, we are going to show some system information such as application name, processor architecture, operating system name, etc. I will add some code here. I am going to copy and paste some code I've already written. Here I have added some public variables and some properties, just for demonstration purposes. OK. It shows some errors. See the code editor already suggesting possible fixes. Just click on the error string and click and select the suggested line. Most of the time, the top suggestion from the list is the correct one. The onGet method sets those variables and properties with values. On the Razor page about.cshtml, I will add the following code. The purpose of this tutorial is to get started with the ASP.NET Core Razor Pages web application. Therefore, I am not going to explain every line of code here. The project uses the Bootstrap UI framework. Therefore, most CSS classes I used in this code are from Bootstrap. The code is mostly self-explanatory. This environment tag is an ASP.NET Core element. It is recognized in the Razor pages, not in HTML pages. It interprets as, if the environment is the development or staging, then show these contents, otherwise ignore the contents between opening and closing environment tags. The environment can be set from the project properties. Right-click on the project in the Solution Explorer, then select Properties. It will open up the Properties window in the main area in the middle as a tab. Then select Debug from the left. Here we can set the environment variables for the project. The line for the Visual Studio solution name is a static text string. The code started with a yellow @ symbol to indicate C# code to show the dynamic content. This code shows how to display the values coming from the properties and variables I defined in the page model class. And these are built-in C# system variables. Since we edited a lot of code, press Ctrl plus F5, it will rebuild and open the website on a new page. Now navigate to the About page, it shows the changes. Go back to Home page. Home page contents can be modified by editing index.cshtml and index.cshtml.cs files. I will add some code to this page, and to the CSS file just to demonstrate how we can modify the website. I have just completed adding custom code to index.cshtml page and the site.css files. In addition to the content added by the template wizard, I have added some UI elements using Bootstrap and Font Awesome frameworks just to demonstrate how to modify and extend the application. In this tutorial, I am not going to discuss more details about HTML or CSS code, but I will show you some important things that we should follow. On this index page, most of the code is written in HTML code. The code that starts with the @ symbol indicates that the code after this line is a C# code. A Razor page must have the @page directive placed in the first line of the file. Then in the next line, the @model directive, followed by the page model class name. As I mentioned before, Razor page files must also have a .cshtml extension. The code behind file with the same name with an additional .cs file extension is referred to as page model. Any code relating to server-side processing should be placed in this file. To access this file from the Razor page, we must place the @model directive followed by page model. If we need to put a code block, it should be written between opening and closing curly brackets after its symbol. Similarly, if we need to comment on a word or one or more lines, use *, at the beginning, and *, symbols at the end, just like this. Now let's examine the Layout page again. Layout page acts as a template for other Razor content pages. It holds the common code required for all the pages on the website. For example, the menu bar and footer are common for all the content pages on the website. This is not limited to HTML code but also any JavaScript or CSS code that is common to the website should place in this layout file. Remember, we downloaded the Font Awesome client library. We should call it here. In ASP.NET we normally reference those libraries on the layout page. Let's run the app to see the changes I have made. Press Ctrl plus F5 to start the website. These are just common UI parts. I have added a background image with a scrolling text effect, Bootstrap cards and some Font Awesome icons. Next, we will examine user registration and login. When creating a user, user data is stored in a database. Even though we started the website, the database was not created. When we create the project using the template engine generates the code to create the database. It will only run that code when we first create a user. Let's see if the database is there. We can find the database name in the connection string defined in the appsettings.json file. Normally the template wizard generates a name in a format like this, the word ASP.NET then dash followed by the project name. Then another dash followed by a random ID. We can change this name as we wish. Later we are going to change it for this project as well. Before that, we will check if there is a database already in SQL Server. Since it uses SQL Express Local DB, we can check it directly from the IDE. Just click on the SQL Server Object Explorer at the left. Then click on the arrowhead in front of Name the SQL Server to expand, then similarly expand the MS SQL Local DB node, and then Databases. There is no database with this name as in the connection string. For clarity and brevity in this tutorial, I am changing this long database name to a more readable name like this. So far the application does not have a database. But the application does have the necessary plumbing to create a database. Let's create a new user. Press Ctrl plus F5 to start the website. Now click on the Register menu link to register a new user. Type email address, password, and confirm password. Then click on the Register button. OK, here we got an error. It says, a database operation failed while processing the request. It suggests applying migration. This is because even though the migration code was added, we didn't apply the migration. Instead of pressing this Apply Migration button, go back to Visual Studio IDE. Click on the Package Manager Console tab at the bottom pane. If it is not shown like this, select View, Other Windows, then select the Package Manager Console. Also, we can open the Package Manager Console by selecting Tools, then New, Get Package Manager, and then Package Manager Console. Now we can execute the Update Database command in the Package Manager Console. Always remember to select the correct project name for the default project text box. In this project, it has already been selected since we have only one project. But, this is important when you have multiple projects in the same solution. Now type Update Database and press Enter. It will take a while to show the status of the database creation process. Now here we can see that it is executing the database scripts. Finally, it is done. Now click on SQL Server Object Explorer tab at the left pane. Refresh the database server by clicking this Refresh button. As we did before, expand up to Databases. Here now we can see the database. Expand the database and then Tables node. Now right-click on the dbo.asp.net users table and select View Data. It confirms that the database is now created. But see, this table is empty. It is perfectly fine because registration was not successful on our first attempt. Now we go back to the website and refresh the site or hit F5 from the keyboard. Click the Continue button to resubmit the form message box. Now it has created the given user as shown here. We can manage the user data by clicking this account name. On the Manage Your Account page, we can change account details such as profile, password, two-factor authentication, and your personal data. Let's check the database to see if this user information was created. Previously, when we checked the database, there were a few tables, but no records. The user table was empty. Now we have fixed the issue and created a user account. Let's go back to the IDE to check the dbo.asp.net users table. Since we have already opened the data view, we can refresh the view to see the updates. If you have closed it, reopen it using the SQL Server Object Explorer tab on the left pane. Now it is not empty, and shows one record. See the email address I was given during the registration, it is now written in the user table. Next we will check the personal data section of the Manage Your Account page. It says your account contains personal data that you have given us. This page allows you to download or delete that data. Making the data able to be downloaded and deleted helps meet GDPR requirements. GDPR means European Union General Data Protection Regulation. so your website is GDPR compliant. That's all for this tutorial. Let's summarize all. We covered requirements. I showed how to create a project using the Visual Studio template with individual user accounts. I demonstrated how to add and modify client-side libraries to the project. Showed how to modify the existing code, such as using page models and system variables. Explained about razor page syntax. And created and examined the user data in the database as well. As a getting started guide, I have covered almost all areas of the website development process. That's all for this tutorial. Hope this guide will help you to start developing websites using ASP.NET Core Razor Pages. To download the source code, please refer to the links provided below in the comments section. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel to help create more videos like this.